Razor blade worked pretty well to get the gasket off, and I'm going to use that brass wheel brush to get the rest of this remaining stuff off. Just be careful not to lose this spring. That's what your clutch goes, and don't lose this gasket for your goes on your oil pump. So you look at all this stuff all in here. That's what I was talking about when you use this wheel brush. It gets the gasket off really well, but it slings stuff everywhere, so you just have to clean it out. You want to be really careful when spraying that out, like I just said, because you will, or you can, get that brake cleaner in this cut, and let me tell you, it is not something you want to go through. Before you put this on, I took that other dowel pin out of the case right here and stuck it in the frame of the motor, so that way the gasket would stay on better. And be really careful not to damage this gasket, because I can tell this one is really cheap, so I don't want to damage it because I don't have another one with me, so it would stop the whole project. I mean, it would halt me right here, so just be really careful with that. And now I'm going to go ahead and make sure your clutch lever is connecting with that thing in there, because you don't want to have to take this all off if your clutch does not engage. So just make sure. Mine is connected to it, so we should be good there. I'm going to now go in and put every bolt in with my little diagram I made, and then I'll go ahead and torque them all to spec, which I'm not sure what that is, but I'll look it up for you guys. There is little O-rings on these. Do not lose these, because the kit I came with did not come with new ones. So I cleaned them off as best I could and put them back on there. So they should be good. I have one bolt missing right there. I bet that's what this bolt is. Yep. So I'm just going to go ahead now and tighten all these. Kind of do it in a star pattern, like always, just go one end to the other end. So we'll see. I haven't checked the torque spec on these yet. Pro tip here, stuff something in here while you're taking this gasket off so you don't get a bunch of gasket material inside your case here, or even right here where you just sealed it up with the clutch cover. So that's what I'm working on right now, is getting this gasket off. I've got it all the way around off besides this part right here. I just can't really get in there with a razor blade. So just trying to get that out. So to make it a little easier, I took the piston off so I could put the rings on, because it was kind of a pain to put the rings on while the piston was attached to the connecting rod over here. So took it off, put the piston rings on, and hopefully we should be good to go. Okay, piston rings and piston are back on. Going to attempt to put the jug or cylinder back on. Make sure you put the O-ring down here back on the cylinder. I forgot about that. There should be an O-ring. It's covered there. But before you put anything back on, make sure you do that with the new one. You should have a kit that should have came with your top end stuff that you can put on there. And don't forget to put this back in here, because it gets sandwiched between and locks it in right there like that. So on to the next step. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so got the piston in. Had to use one of the old rings off of the other piston, because the new one, it was this right here, this ring right here, it was not working correctly, so trashed it, put the old one on. It was kind of a pain, but once my buddy got here, it was a lot easier to put in here. So it's in, about to put the bolts in, torque them down to spec. I'll let you guys know what spec is after I find out, and we'll go on from there. Okay, so each bolt has to be torqued to 33 foot-pounds or 44 Nm, whatever that is. So I'll do that and move on from that part to the next one and see how it goes. Okay, so you need to get these bolts off of the old cylinder and put them on the new one. And in order to do that, you need 2 nuts. We found a 14 on the for the original nut that goes on this to clamp the valve thing on, and the what is this? Another nut that goes on the lug nut from the wheel will fit perfectly on this. So it's a 17, and then you fit that on there. And I'm gonna look up what torque spec to do that, and I'll let you guys know. Okay, so it's 33 foot-pounds for this also. So I'm going to go ahead and get a 14 and torque this 14 nut to 33 foot-pounds. Okay, so I cleaned the valves up pretty good as I could. I didn't get any new ones. I'll put a before picture in so you guys can see what it looked like beforehand, and some pictures of the valves after I cleaned them. I will tell you, these keepers and these springs, if you're changing the valve seals, are an absolute nightmare. So if you don't have a buddy like I did to help you, and you don't have a valve spring C-clamp puller, then you're probably not going to be able to do it, because you have to push down here and put these keepers in. And after you put them in, make sure you hit them with a mallet a couple times to make sure they're seated correctly. Other than that, I hit this side with a this wheel brush right here, and it cleaned up pretty nice. It's scratched up, but it should be fine. We'll find out anyway. Okay, be really careful putting this washer and this nut on here, because you do not want this thing to fall down, or you will cry. You have to take everything back apart. I believe these are what we're supposed to be torquing at 33 foot-pounds, but I'm going to double check here in a minute. Okay, these get torqued to 33 foot-pounds. Once this is torqued in, the valve head thing here, you need to put the cam decompressioner pin and spring back in underneath the cam before you put anything else in. Then you need to take the sprocket, is what I did. Took the sprocket, hooked it up to the chain with my finger through it. Then you need to put the bearings on each side of the cam, put the dowel pins in on each side, slide the cam through the chain, slide it through the chain. As you see, I got another wound there. Slide the cam through the chain and through the sprocket. Tighten the first bolt down. You need to, first you need to make sure it's top dead center. It is top dead center. It's spun a little now, but you need to make sure this mark is on the top, this mark's on the side, and this mark's on the side with the lobes down. That is the correct way to time it. So I'm going to go ahead and spin it now so I can get to this other Allen screw so I can put it in on the other side of the cam sprocket. And once that is done, I should be able to put the valve cover on, and everything should be good after that. Tighten it, and we'll see you then. So you don't put the tensioner in off of your old one until you're done with everything. So everything is good. It's top dead center, lined up perfectly. Now I need to take the manual tensioner and put it in here. You need to retract it. Take this screw off right here. Take this screw off, and inside here is a flathead screwdriver, and you take the flathead and twist it until it retracts in all the way like that right there. I don't know if you can see it, if it'll focus on it. And once it's retracted in, you can put it into the new cylinder and then retract it. Okay, so you just take this little cap off. Don't lose it. That would be terrible. Oh. Then you take a flathead. And stick it in here. And you can feel the tension on the chain almost immediately. My last chain was almost all the way out, the tensioner was. And if you actually, you might be able to see if I turn the flash on. Down there, you can see the tensioner pushing on the cam chain guide. And it puts about 4 pounds of pressure on the chain. And that is what keeps the chain tight, and that's what was knocking in the first place on mine. So it's the whole reason I did all of this. So if it doesn't work and it's still knocking afterward, I might cry. I don't think it will though. I think it's going to be good to go. Just take that little screw, put it back on there, tighten it, and then the next step is putting the head back on. So we'll get to it. Huh?
Head's already on.
I mean the head cover, valve cover, back on. Here you can see I did another one of these with cardboard. Makes it a lot easier so you don't forget which one and where it goes. When you're putting these back on, make sure you do it in a cross pattern like everything else. So opposite every single time. And I'll get that done. Once everything's torqued down, the next step is to put this motor mount back through, and then once the motor mount is back through, you can put the carburetor back on, and then we'll put the exhaust back on and then attempt to start it.